and we just, I mean, there's the easiest ways to access documents. And there are, I mean, document retrieval is probably the easiest, but we're going to go ahead and show you some different ways that you can access documents through different modules within OnBase using all three clients, as well as the App Enabler module and Outlook integration. So we will go ahead and get started. So here's our customer care group. As you can see, we've got a couple new members. Kathy's been with us for a couple months, and Jason just started about 3 weeks ago. Andy and I are going to be the presenters today, but throughout the rest of the year, some of these new employees are going to go ahead and do some of these presentations also. And just like with any webinar, here is the, everybody's muted. There's a chat box, so if you have questions or you want to ask something, go ahead and put it in there, and we'll get to all the questions at the end. There is a survey that comes up when you exit the webinar, and we would greatly appreciate it if you could put in some suggestions if you have something that you'd like us to talk about in these webinars. Because we have a lot of our own ideas, but it's good to hear what our customers want, and we are more than willing to cater to what you guys are looking for in these webinars.
Absolutely, and the reason we're doing Access today is actually because we've got a whole bunch of new customers out there who are new to OnBase, or they're new to electronic content management in general. So we're going to cover the basics today with Access.
And we also have a lot of customers that are not using the Unity client, but thinking about using the Unity client. So we thought we could showcase how things look a little differently with that client.
Absolutely. So we'll kick off with a brief discussion of what is Access, what does it mean when we say Access, and then we'll take a look at what Access looks like in the various OnBase clients: Thick Client, Web Client, Unity Client. We'll do a quick blurb on the App Enabler module and the Office integrations, focusing mostly on Outlook. And if we've got time, we'd like to take a closer look at OnBase Mobile at the end of the presentation. So we'll get started with what is Access. Access, as an ECM concept, is retrieval of information. In electronic content management, in ECM, information is usually documents. So you could say Access is just retrieval, but it's a little more than that, because you're also looking at the metadata behind your documents, your keywords, your document dates, where your documents exist in workflow, if you have workflow, because that tells you how far along they are in processing, or if there have been processing issues with them, along with document history, whether or not those documents have been touched by certain individuals, or by certain departments, or by certain processes. So Access in OnBase is achieved through 5 major modules. Doc retrieval, of course, just vanilla doc retrieval is the most common, followed by custom queries and workflow. Workflow is probably more common than custom queries even. But you can also access information in OnBase through foldering and auto-foldering, and of course through keywords, just regular keywords. So we'll start out looking at Access in the Thick Client. The Thick Client is the oldest OnBase client. It's been around since the beginning of OnBase. For a very long time, it was OnBase. It defined the OnBase experience. The Thick Client is still alive and kicking. It's used mostly for batch processing nowadays, or for large volume scanning, but it still works just fine as an Access client. Typically in the Thick Client, you'll be looking at using retrieval or custom queries, folders, or envelopes. Workflow is not done quite so much in Thick Client anymore since it's moved to the core, but it's still perfectly valid to do workflow in the Thick Client. The Thick Client, being the oldest OnBase module, the oldest OnBase client, Thick Client has the advantage of having the most feature support, and that is retrieval custom queries, folders and file cabinets, envelopes, and workflow. Not all of the clients support all of the things, all of the modules. Thick Client does. It's probably its major advantage. So we get started. Plain retrieval in the Thick Client has looked the same for a long time. The box on the left is the classic document retrieval window. The box on the right is the new style document retrieval window. It takes up a little less screen space. You find that you retrieve a document by selecting one or more document type groups, document types you're looking for, entering any relevant keywords that may be shared between the document types you've selected. You can select multiple document types by control clicking on them. You know, select a date or a date range to narrow things down. It's pretty simple, been around for a long time. It can be a little confusing though, especially if you have a large number of document types and a large number of document types that people, that your end users are expected to use, which is where custom queries come in play. You can build a custom query or 2 or 20 or 200 to make it easier to find documents. And custom queries in the Thick Client look a lot like classic retrieval. You've got the light gray screen with your regular text boxes for your keyword input values and things like that. Yeah, custom queries have been around for a long time. Work just fine in the Thick Client. Another way to organize documents to make it easier to find and access them is using foldering, auto-foldering, and file cabinets. Again, this is an interface that started out in the Thick Client, so it has the most feature support in the Thick Client, although it's pretty good in the other clients. So in this screenshot, you can see we have an employee file cabinet for HR that holds a variety of document types arranged by employee. In this case, we're looking at our employee Andrew Lincoln, and we're looking at his applicant information. So within our document window there, on the lower side, on the lower left side there, we can see we've got his cover letters, resume, etc. This folder has been defined to contain a certain number of specific documents. So we're missing his reference letter, and it's telling us that, which is kind of nice. It's a unique feature of folders.
A lot of times, folders can be used for a lot of different things, but a lot of times they're used in the HR department. Because you think of a person's employee file and all the documents that go with it, it lends very easily to using file cabinets and folders. But it can be used for anything, like if you're in the banking industry and it's a loan file, or you have a customer that has, a checking account, a loan, and all these things, you can put all those together and see them all in one place.
Exactly. So we get a preview of our document that we're looking at. In this case, the cover letter over on the right side. We have some tabs defined for him. Looks like we've got a tab there for performance reviews and a tab for employment documents, stuff like that. So the tabs are his extra folders. So we'd have like his I-9 and his W-4 or whatever in there.
And you can set that up also to search. If you, for example, you have 500 employees, you're not going to want to go down the list and look for somebody in the Z's. In this instance, you could then search for that information or something else, a different keyword, to bring up that folder.
Exactly. So with a similar name but a very different purpose are envelopes. They're not as commonly used. If you have a system that uses export, writing to DVD, you're going to use envelopes for doing ad hoc exports. Like if you have a legal team that comes in and needs to examine documents, you can throw documents into this envelope and then use the envelope to export a little tiny OnBase system just for your legal team to look at. Envelopes are where a folder is automatic. You build it into the system and then it does its thing by itself. An envelope is sort of a personal folder. You can throw documents into an envelope and just keep them there. If you say you've got some reference documentation for a project you're working on, you can throw it all into one envelope, call it My Project Documentation, and you'll always have it there, easy and quick to grab. Just opening up your envelopes and then a list of all of your documents in there. There's no document type constraints, as long as you can, as long as you have permission to read the document type, you can throw it into an envelope and keep it for quick access.
A lot of times, customers use this if they have an auditor come in, and the auditor gives them a list of the documents they want them to look at. They set up a folder or an envelope, put all those documents in that envelope, and then when the auditor comes in, they can log in and you share that envelope, and then they can see all those documents that they requested they wanted to see.
Exactly. So then we get to the 800-pound gorilla, which is workflow. Workflow in Thick Client has been around for a long time. Long time. And it looks like this. And it's gigantic and looks confusing at first if you've never used workflow. Workflow allows you to divide documents up by process rather than say department or document type or even, and in a custom query by related keywords. Workflow divides them by process. You define a process in a unit called a life cycle. And in this case, we are looking at, in this screenshot, we're looking at the AP invoice approval processing life cycle, specifically the first queue in that life cycle, which is the invoice entry queue. When a new invoice comes into this hypothetical OnBase system, it drops into the invoice entry queue, where it can be initially processed. And it's processed by using the ad hoc tasks over on the right side of the screen there. We only have one in the initial queue, which is begin processing, moves it to the next queue where it begins, looks like automatic matching to our external accounting system. Workflow is hugely powerful. We've got a whole lot of stuff on the screen here. Let me walk you through it. Box in the upper left is our life cycle view where we see what queue we've selected. We can see there are 16 documents in this queue. Those documents appear in the window just below it there that says documents. And we are specifically looking at the first document in that queue, which is previewed in the pane to the right. You can see in that document preview that we've got a sticker on there for denied. We've processed this guy already. There's also a note on there. If you double click on the note, you can read what the note says. And those notes are searchable in OnBase. Lower left corner, we've got some related documents for this invoice. So we've got a purchase order, a packing slip, and a requisition for the PO that are automatically assigned as related documents to this invoice through related keywords that we've set up elsewhere in OnBase. And then we've got a little we have user interaction window in the lower right, which is just showing us the informational help text for this queue at the moment. If we had an ad hoc task that required user input, the user input would show up in that box down there. So when we go through the next clients, we'll be looking at the same areas in the various clients, so you can see how they compare from client to client. And we'll be looking at this exact same queue with the same document in the Web Client, the Unity Client, and not Outlook integration because that's it uses the Unity interface, so it'll look exactly like the Unity client. that you can get to workflow from the Outlook client.
And another thing, like from within workflow, to be able to display documents that are in a more meaningful way, you can set up filters. So if you need them to be sorted by date or number or company, what vendor they came in from or whatever, you can do that so that you make sure that you are processing them in the way that they need to be processed. So that's another way to change the display of the documents so that so when you're accessing them the way you need to do your job. A lot of times the filters that we set up in workflow are either set up from folders, so workflow foldering, or OnBase foldering, or are set up as custom queries used in workflow. So some of the if the custom query functionality that you have can then be changed into workflow so that you can change the way you're viewing your documents. And we'll move on to the web client.
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of power in workflow if you've never used it before. If you have, you're probably nodding your head. So, accessing the web client. The web client, well, I mean, it runs in a web browser. It tries to look a little bit like the Thick Client. There are situations where it can't, just because it's running in a web browser. So this is the main view you get when you log into the OnBase Web Client. You start out by default with document retrieval. Can you set a home screen on Web Client?
No.
Okay. Where you can set, in Thick Client, you can set a particular module to load at client startup where you can't in the Web Client, which isn't a huge deal. But that's an interesting difference between Web Client and Thick Client.
Yeah, well, and a new option I believe it came out in 14, and now in 15 they have it, is the favorites. So you can set a screen to be a favorite, and then you can more easily get to that screen if that's the screen you need to get to all the time.
Yeah, so, that's actually a feature borrowed from the Unity client.
Yep. Which was a nice addition to the web client.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of things to note about the web client. You get the Thick client when you get OnBase. The web client is a separate license. You use a web browser to connect to it, usually Internet Explorer, but it'll also support Firefox and Safari in HTML-only modes. It requires that you set up an application server and a web server.
They can be on the same box.
They can, or you can split them and use a web server that talks to the internet, that's internet facing. So it makes a decent option for remote access to OnBase. Whereas the Thick client makes a really terrible option for remote access to OnBase. So in the web client, we get most of what we get in the Thick client. We can do retrieval, we can do custom queries, folders and file cabinets are here, and we do have workflow. So let's start out with retrieval. Retrieval in the web client looks a lot like the new style retrieval window in OnBase Thick client. We get a big vertical window where we can select our document type group from a pull down, select any document types we want to search in that scrolling list box, put in a date range to filter, and then any keywords that are shared among the document types that we've selected. We still have our options for full text search in the web client, and at the bottom we've got buttons for clearing our keywords, clearing all of the stuff that we've entered, or binoculars, actually going and finding what we're looking for.
On another note, retrieval itself, it's always a good idea if you can narrow down your search, because if you have had OnBase for a long time and you have a lot of documents in the system, it's really going to bog down the server and take a really long time for you to bring back say, 65,000 documents. Whereas it's always a good idea, and it'll be much easier to find what you're looking for if you can put in a keyword or put in a date range or, a date range and a keyword to limit the results that are coming back, because it'll be much more efficient and much more effective and work better for you to get to the information faster.
Correct. Keywords for retrieval they're one of the things that we go over when we do our discovery phases, when we're planning your implementation. They don't seem real important at the beginning because you can just go into a document type and hit search without putting in any dates or keywords, and you get back the 5 documents you have in your brand new OnBase system. But as the system is used and more documents are filtered into these document types, 3 years later when you hit the find button and there are 200,000 documents in that document type, it's not as useful anymore to just go to the document type and click find, and you find yourself really wanting those keywords to limit your search results and refine your search. That's a good thing to think about if you're starting a new OnBase implementation.
Or a good thing to think about if you've decided to bring a new department onto OnBase.
Yes.
Helping that department determine what keywords they want to use or what they're going to search for will be very helpful for them going forward and in the future.
Mm-hmm. So moving on in the web client, we've got custom queries. They exist just like they do in the Thick Client, although they look a little different. If you use a standard custom query where you just define a few keywords that you're looking for, like we did in our Thick Client demonstration, all of the keywords remain in that left-hand panel. If you have an HTML custom query, the actual HTML itself will show up in the panel to the right. I'm using a standard custom query with a trio of keywords, so everything shows up right below my custom query select box there. Those are the 3 keywords I was looking for in the Thick Client. Folders in the web client work. You can see the interface is a little bit different. On the biggest change is probably on the right side. We have the web-based document viewer in this case instead of our OnBase Thick Client, custom folder document viewer. So we lose our actually we don't lose our tabs. Our tabs are right over there, way over on the right side. But we get thumbnails for each page, which is a feature of the web client image viewer. Because it's more efficient to bring back just the one page you're looking at. In the Thick Client, because you're assumed to be on a local area network, it will bring back the whole document, and you can just page through it using your next and previous page buttons. In the web client, you get thumbnails by default that show up on the right side. So that's probably the biggest visual change. You'll notice everything else is pretty much the same. We've got the same view of our file cabinets, the same applicant's information folder within our employee, Andrew Lincoln. We're looking at the same document, the cover letter, and it's just right there. It works just like it does in the Thick Client. Anything you want to add on folders in the web client? Yeah. There's not a lot to add because it
looks very similar.
It just works. Yeah.
Yep.
So workflow. Workflow is pretty impressive. You get pretty much full access to workflow in web client. And you get almost all of workflow in the HTML web client as well, which is a huge, huge thing. So here we've got the same queue I was in before, and you can see the interface is quite a bit different in the web client. On our upper left corner, we would have our lifecycle view, but that tab is not active. We've instead switched to the Related Documents tab, showing the related documents for the document in the queue that we've selected, which is our Office Supply Warehouse invoice from the previous example. We've still got the denied sticker, shows up right there where it's supposed to be, and we've got our note, still shows up right on the document. Again, we've got the web-based image viewer with our thumbnails on the right side.
Another thing to keep in mind is that each of these do notes a little bit different. each of these versions. And you can see on the web client, down here in the bottom, it says 2 notes, telling us that there's 2 notes on the document. So, and as you will be able to see when we get to the Unity client, there's a totally different place where it tells you where notes are in that client. So
yep.
It does, all of them support notes. They just have a little different way of showing you where they are depending on the client that you're in.
Correct. Same with ad hoc tasks. You can see we've got our ad hoc tasks. They're no longer along the right side of the screen. Instead, they're in this little kind of toolbar area right below our hit list, our queue hit list. Same idea. They just fill out that toolbar area. If it gets too large, it will scroll. But all of our ad hoc tasks are available and accessible from the web client. This is running in core-based workflow. If any of you know the difference between core and classic workflow, web client runs core-based workflow only. So if you've got workflow queues set up with classic actions, they won't work quite right in the web client, but that's a pretty easy fix. All right.
All right, now we're going to talk about the Unity client, the newest of OnBase's client suite. As you can see by looking at this, you may recognize it right off the bat. It looks this toolbar across the top is very similar to the Microsoft Office. They mimicked this client after Office, and as you will see when we get to the Outlook integration, because Outlook is obviously a Microsoft product, this is all very similar. So within here, though, you get a few more options. So first of all, they have a home page, which you can customize to how you want that to come up. Each person has what's called a personal page. So that is what's being shown here. So if you have customers that are always going into certain workflow queues, always running certain custom queries, always doing a certain search, as you can see up here, they can add those to their personal page, and then they're right there for them, and they don't have to enter all the information. They don't have to go into the retrieval to do that. As you can see up here, there's the custom queries and the file cabinets and the envelopes and all the different types of retrieval we've been talking about, along with workflow way over here on the right. So again, this needs to be licensed, and it also requires an application server. So it talks to the application server and the connection from the application server to the database.
Does not require a web server.
Nope. And you can, just like in all the other clients, you can retrieve, you can custom queries, you can do folders and file cabinets, envelopes, and workflow. It does have some built-in sort features on your searches, which you could never do in the Thick client or the web client, which is really, really nice in this client. So as you can see, this is the document retrieval window, and it looks very, very similar to all the other clients. For the most part, you have all your document types, your document type groups, your keyword ranges, or date ranges, and your keywords. And you can also, I don't know that we've talked about it much, but you can see this note search on the bottom, which you can do in other clients also. If you're looking for a certain note type that says something particular, you could search for that note and pull up that document that way also. Here's the custom queries. This also has the same look and feel, very similar to the web client, or Thick Client, yeah. So it's got the different queries you have access to on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, what keyword values you can enter. Now, keep in mind, you can set these custom queries up to search something particular without people having to enter anything also.
Custom queries are very flexible. If you haven't used custom queries yet, definitely take a look at them. You can do a lot of really interesting things with custom queries.
Well, and you can help your users so they don't have to actually search, spend so much time putting in the values that they're looking for. So here is the files or folders and file cabinets, and as you can see here, this looks, again, very similar to the other clients. Got the tabs on the right-hand side, you got the thumbnail of the document. You can see there's a missing reference letter not found on the bottom. So very similar, does a lot of the same things that you can get with all of our other clients. And envelopes, again, very similar. They don't look much different than they did in the other clients, and you can still do the same things with them. And then workflow.
Yes.
Workflow is a little bit different in this client. It looks a little different again. That they've maneuvered the screen a little bit differently. But as you can see with this client, the tasks are up in the pane. So right up here, you can see you got your tasks. It also allows you, if you have access to do queue administration, sometimes you have that access, you can do that straight from Unity, right here. So you choose your queue on the upper left-hand side here, and then here's all your documents. Or let me take that back. Your inbox is over here, and then your related documents are on the bottom left-hand corner.
It's even harder to kind of immediately grok Unity workflow, because you can also take each one of these panes and just put it wherever you want. You can pop it out of the window as a separate toolbar window. You can attach it to any of the other windows around it. You can make them tabs.
You can add a secondary viewer, so you've got the invoice here, and maybe you have a related purchase order that you bring in on the secondary window from the related documents, so you can compare them.
Correct.
So
this is a default view that my demo system ships with. You can almost literally make Unity workflow look any way you want.
You can do a lot of different stuff with it. And then we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to back up for just a second. I kind of wanted to show you the fact that you can search on certain things within workflow or within a search, and that would be done with these little boxes up here, right above or right under name and right above the first document. If you click on this arrow, it will give you some options of different things that you could search for, or you could just type in. If you're looking for a certain name, or you're looking for a document that came in on a certain date, for example. Or if you have this filtered, you may have more columns here, and if you have more columns, then you can sort on whatever those columns are.
Sure, we'll demo that, hopefully.
And then App Enabler. App Enabler allows you to enable third-party applications from a mouse click or a keystroke. So the idea is that you're on your SAP screen, for example, and you want to find all the invoices. You could press the F10 key or Control left double click, as you can see on the screen, and it would bring back all the documents in OnBase that have that PO number, for example.
OnBase can reach into your SAP window and grab that PO number or whatever you're searching for, your invoice number, and then go search OnBase with that in a specific keyword and bring you back all the documents that match that number that's in SAP, but then also in OnBase, so you can tie the two systems together really quickly.
Yeah, so, and as you can see in here, it gives you a lot of different things that you can view. So the patient viewer, retrieve deficiencies, that's all Epic. Document tracking folders, documents folders, retrieve in workflow. So you get it comes with a lot of different options that you can use. You just have to configure it to work with your third-party application, whatever that may be. And then Office integration. So if you have installed the Office add-in, so the Outlook add-in, the Word add-in, Excel, PowerPoint, you will have an OnBase tab at the very top. And as you can see, this is actually a snippet from my Outlook. And so I have access to custom queries, to document retrieval, envelopes, file cabinets. I can upload a document from here. I can go into workflow. Actually, this is the only way I do workflow. So I have stuff I have to approve for processing, and it comes in here, and I just use my Outlook. Which could come in handy for a lot of your users, especially if you have managers that do nothing else but approve an invoice. And once I go into workflow, it looks just like the Unity client.
Absolutely.
So I get my task, whatever the task is that I need to do or options I need to do on that document will show up right in my toolbar.
So how does that document show up in your Outlook?
I can get an email from, you can set it up so that you get a notification email that the document is there and that you can access it from there.
From OnBase Workflow. Goes right into your email inbox. You get your workflow tasks right there in your Outlook. You can do your workflow processing right from Outlook. You never even have to launch an OnBase client.
Well, and since we do have a little time left, do you want to go ahead and show mobile?
Yeah, we've got some demos lined up. We've got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and we'll start with OnBase Mobile. We've got a lot of folks who are interested in OnBase Mobile and what OnBase Mobile can do. So I feel like it might be fun to show it off. Alrighty. Live demo. Come on, baby. Hey, there we go. So this is my personal Surface 3, and I'm going to, oh, this thing's really slow. There we go. I'm going to go to my start screen, and I have the OnBase mobile app. There's a brand new app for Windows, I believe Windows Phone and Windows Mobile. So I'm going to pull that up here, cruise all the way down my start screen. There it is. We'll launch the OnBase mobile app. All right, so we've got this defined on our, installed on our local network here in Avian. So I'm going to log in with my network credentials, actually. There's no single sign-on support because it's a mobile device, and that holds true for phones, iPads, iPhones, and unfortunately Windows devices. So we've got our options here. If you can see my cursor. Okay. I'm going to hit the hamburger menu up in the upper left corner here. You can see what we've got access to in the mobile client. You can create forms, you can upload documents, you get to workflow. I'll just show you workflow, but I don't have any workflow here. They don't give me any workflow. So we're going to do real quickly just a document search in the mobile client. We're going to look up the wellness document, and let's put in a date range of, say, January 1st. day. Put in, let's do, since we're on the surface, let's do, of course it's going to get it. We'll look for our newsletters. Hey, look. There's some newsletters. That does not show up. Oh, there we go. Yay. So there's our netting newsletters through our OnBase system, through OnBase Mobile. That is OnBase Mobile. I've got a demo for Unity. If anyone's interested, we've got some time to show the differences on Unity clients, the sorting and
the sorting.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Right. Demo VM here. So we'll go ahead and launch the Unity client. So as we were explaining before, your start page, your start screen on the Unity client is unlike any of the other clients. You don't start at document retrieval or your custom queries or whatever. You start at your home page, which can be a personal page, and you can take these personal tiles and put them wherever you want. Arrange them in any order that you like that makes sense to you. They're saved to your user account, so anytime you log into a Unity client with your username, you get your personal page with all of your settings and things. These are live. These are live tiles. So in this case, we've got the benefit change workflow here, and we're looking at we can see two documents that are in this benefit change workflow. We click on it, we can go straight to the document within workflow. Where we can do see up here we can add our notes to it, add the amount discrepancy note if we need to. We've got our workflow tasks. We don't have any workflow tasks for this document. Anyway, retrieval, actually any hit list in the Unity client can do advanced sorting that we were hinting at in our presentation. Let me show you what that looks like. Yes, I'm going to do an unrestricted query on my demo for all 4 documents that I have. That's not going to be a good demo because I don't have any keywords on it. Let's do actions list, that's better. So what we were saying is we've got this gray bar up here, this little guy. And you can take, let's say you want to sort these packing slips by, let's say I don't have a lot of columns in here. Let's sort them by.
Yeah, the demo's not so good for that.
No. Let's do multiple document types.
Yeah, do you have a document custom query?
Just the ones we demoed. Here we go. We'll do a multiple document type query because now we can sort these by document type. So if we grab the type column, grab the type column, drag it up to this little bar, we get this group by area. You drop the type in there. Now we've got these grouped by document type. And you can group these by any keywords that you have available. So retrieval, not so useful. In custom queries, you can define what keywords you're displaying in your return document hit list. And in that case, you can sort by any of those keywords. It makes it much more useful. Same goes for workflow. See how that looks in workflow. So you can see my workflow layout looks a little bit different than the one we showed in the demo. Like I said, you can move all of these columns around anywhere you want. You can pin them to particular sides of your window. Let's say I want my inbox on the very right side of my screen for whatever reason. I can. If I want my inbox to float, it can be a floating display. Let's say I want to throw it on a second monitor. I can have my workflow inbox on one monitor and have my document viewer on another. Perfectly capable in the Unity client, something the Thick client can't do. So let's go through add AP invoice processing. I've got 20 in this one. Have that Office Supply Warehouse one? I don't. Cool. I don't have it. So we can still sort again. In this case, let's say we want to sort by PO number. We can drag it up to this gray bar again. The gray bar, we get the group by area. And now we have these sorted by PO number. When these don't have PO numbers, they all get lumped into one area. But then you can see we've got one invoice per PO number, which is good. That's what we're looking for. So let's see, what else? Go ahead and close workflow. Yes, really. Anything else you wanted to show?
I don't think so. I think we'll continue with the rest of the presentation, and then if you have any other questions, I mean, feel free to contact support, and we can help you out and show you a couple things if there's anything else you're interested in seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, our online resources, of course, our blog. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We try to add content at least every week in there. OnBase community, that got a whole revamp a couple weeks ago.
Yes, it did.
So that page is now totally different. So you'll have to search around and, but it's very easy to use and has a lot of good information like forums on different modules and processes and stuff. So if you haven't checked it out, it's a good thing to go ahead and check out.
Do you have any questions?
And we don't have any at this point, so we're just going to keep going. If you do have any questions after this webinar, please feel free to contact support. Oh, we do have one, I guess.
We have a question. How do you remove the group once you drag it to a group by a bar? That's a good question. Okay. Let's get back to the VM. An excellent question. So if we are in an interface like this where we've got a group, we don't want to group by it anymore. We do not right click it, we drag it right back out. And you ungroup. So to group, you drag it into the group by area. To ungroup, you drag it out again. Yeah, come on. There. Does that make sense?
Great question.
Yeah, excellent question. All right, I think that was it. I don't see any other questions.
Nope, and so currently version 15 is the most recent, and as you can see with 15, they have made the numbers the same. So Core and Thick Client now have the same release number, which is nice to do. Kofax Capture 10, we've got VRS Elite, and then we've got Teleforms version 10. To get a hold of us, as always, you can email into support@navient-inc.com. You can call us on our 1-800 number. We have live chat, which you can get to from our webpage, which is www.navient-inc.com in the customer portal. So feel free, if you need to get a hold of us, any of those ways. Our next webinar will be July 15th. We don't have a topic yet, so please, if you have something you'd like to know about or like us to talk about, please send that to us.
Yes, please.
And the Navient conference is in October, as usual, and this year it is at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So it'll be a fun event. If you can make it, we would love to see you there.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yep, have a wonderful day, and again, if you have any other questions, please contact us. Thank you.